Hi jazz fans, today we're going to talk about form. Form is the element in the music that most people are not aware of that makes the music satisfying, or if the form is not very good, not satisfying. Form is rhythm in the largest sense. How the piece is put together and how long each section of the piece is. We use song form quite a bit in jazz. Most jazz pieces are based on a song form. The blues is the most common, 12-bar blues. Generally the blues is 12 bars, but it can be other lengths as well. So 12-bar blues that everybody knows, Sunny Moon for Two, or Frankie and Johnny. There's thousands and thousands of blues out there. During the 1940s and 50s, at least half of all jazz pieces were based on the blues. The blues can be in major or it can be in minor. You have like a C blues, like C jam blues, or we could have a blues in C minor. Or sometimes pieces will go back and forth. That's fairly rare, but once in a while. That happens on the mooch. AABA is the most common of the song forms that's used in American popular song standard. Standards. What do they call it? American Songbook. I Got Rhythm is the most familiar, I suppose, and the most common one. But there are, I would say, of the 32-bar song form, 8 bars for each section. AABA is the most common form. You see that a lot. There's also the variation of ABAC, common piece that everybody knows. There'll Never Be Another You is ABAC. There are many others. So in an ABAC, the B section contrasts with the A section, and then you repeat the A section, and then you have a C section, which is either new or sometimes it's a variation on the B, and we call that an A, B prime. That happens sometimes, where just the last few bars will be different. And sometimes we use 16-bar forms. Jada was an old jazz standard, or Ding Dong Daddy from Dumas, which is Jada with a different bridge, and that's Doxy is based on that. 16-bar forms happen fairly frequently, but not to the extent of the 32-bar forms. And they could be ABA or ABAC, or just an AB form. There's all kinds of things that you can do in 16 bars. Sometimes we have just 8-bar forms, like Rockin' and Rhythm is just the A section of I Got Rhythm and never goes to the bridge. And that works very well too. Chorus form is most jazz until the 1970s was written in chorus form. You do a song form, you do a chorus of it, say AABA, and then we would just repeat the same chords using the same form, just add more choruses to it. So AABA, 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 that's pretty much how most jazz pieces were written during the swing era and beboppers. Duke Ellington experimented with larger forms, but that didn't really catch on until much later. In general, most jazz arrangements have an intro, and then they do the chorus forms. They generally have a coda, or sometimes it's an outro. Sometimes you just do the intro, and then at the end of the piece, you repeat the intro, and that's called an outro. And that's a simple way to do a coda. We also can put interludes between the choruses. Sometimes you use the intro material for the interlude. That can work too. Or it could be contrasting material. Some pieces are through composed. That is, that they don't use a song form, like a lot of, like classical symphony. If you listen to like a Beethoven symphony, he generally doesn't use song forms. It's just motivically developed, and so it's not as repetitious, and it's a little harder for us to understand. There are classical forms. There are several that are very common that happened the classical period and the Romantic period, and even in some variations to this day. There's the sonata allegro form, which has an introduction. It has an exposition, which is has an A theme, and then it has a contrasting B theme, which is either in the key of the dominant, traditionally the key of the. So if your A theme is in the key of C, the B theme would be in G. If the A theme was in a minor key, say A minor, then the B theme is generally in the relative major, C major. Those are, but that can vary as we get into more modern pieces. So that's the exposition, and then you have the development, where you develop the motives of the piece, and it goes through a number of different keys and tempos and things like that. And then you have the recapitulation, where originally from the exposition, those themes come back. In the traditional classical form, whereas in the exposition, the B theme was in the key of the dominant. Now the B theme will stay in the key of the original key. So everything is like in the key of C. And then you have a coda, where could be fairly lengthy. And I neglected to say, very often you also have an introduction generally at the beginning of a sonata allegro form. So we use a variation of that in jazz. We have intro, we have our exposition, which is the head or the melody, and then we do the development, which is where the solos are, and then we have the recapitulation, where we go back and do the head again, and then we have the coda at the end, when generally our codas are pretty short. Rondo form is interesting. It's like A, B, A, C, it could be A, B, A after that, or it could be A, B, A, C, A. It's just that the A section keeps coming back, and sometimes the B section keeps coming back, and you intersperse with contrasting themes. So the B theme is very different from the A theme, and the C theme is going to be different if it goes to ABA would be. That's not really a rondo. That's a simpler three-part form, and that gets used as well in classical music. Usually in the inside, like the second movement, slower movement would be ABA. And then there's theme and variation, where you have usually a short theme. It could be 8 bars, 16 bars, 32 bars, something like that, and then you repeat it. You repeat that melody, but maybe you'll do it in minor, or maybe you'll do it in a different meter, or maybe what was in the right hand, then that goes to the left hand, or if it's a piano piece. So that's theme and variation. Or maybe you'll just put turns instead of. There's some famous theme and variations, and that could be useful in jazz as well. And then there's the fugue. Before we get to the invention, like Bach inventions, and I encourage you to study those. Those are very good for learning how to write counterpoint. And then there's the fugue. That's a popular classical form, and the fugue is a contrapuntal form. You have a subject, and then you have a counter subject, and other voices come in. It's more complicated than a round, like row, row, row your boat, but it's based on that. It comes from that. But then you also have episodes in the middle before, and then you'll go back, and I encourage you to check out Fugues and maybe write some yourself, because I think that counterpoint is one of the weakest spots for jazz composers and arrangers. They usually pretty weak on counterpoint, and so I encourage a study of counterpoint. Bach is the master, J.S. Bach. So in jazz, sometimes we like to combine forms. So Ellington was really good about this. He, like a piece like the Mooch, he has like an AAB form on the head, and then he goes into a blues. So very often he'll combine the blues with other kinds of forms. And so that's something that you might think about. You don't have to just keep doing a chorus form. You might throw in a different form at some point along the way. Sometimes Ellington he has a piece going along, and then at the end he'd just go into the blues for a while and finish up with the blues. That's fine too. The main thing about form is we want to develop our motifs. So at the beginning of the piece, we generally set up a motif, and then usually the opposite of that motif, and then we spend the rest of the piece showing how those two seemingly opposite ideas are really coming out of the same place. We use contrast through the use of opposites to develop these motives and make the piece constantly interesting. But because the motives repeat and develop, that is, that they are altered slightly, and then those alterations are altered slightly until at the end of the piece, you've gone so far away from the motive that it's hardly even recognizable as the motive. But it's like when you play telephone and you sit around in a circle and one person whispers a sentence to the person next to them, and then that person whispers it to the person next to them. By the time you go around the table and 10 people and it comes back to the first person, it's nothing like what he whispered. We want to develop our pieces like that so that they are constantly interesting, and yet they're bound together by this motif. I highly encourage you to analyze great music and see not only the harmonic, jazz players love harmony, but more importantly, how the motives are developed. That's what makes a piece great. Thanks for watching this episode of Writing for Big Band. If you like this lesson, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And check out the other lessons on my channel. If you want to know more, there's tons of information in my books, Creative Jazz Composing and Arranging, Volume 1 and 2, which you can find on my website in the description below. The books have plenty of examples and techniques, and you can download the scores to follow along. Thanks for watching, and happy arranging.